Right, welcome back to the channel, guys. So today we're going to do a owner's review of my very own bike, which is the Voge 500DSX. So if you want to know about this particular bike, and they are bringing out a new variant called the 525DSX, which is slightly higher capacity, very similar, so this review will be useful to you. Similarly, if you want to know a little bit about the Voge brand and the ownership experience of having a Voge, quite a little known bike here in the UK at least, then stick around because I think the video will be interesting from that side of things as well. So I'll talk a little bit about the bike itself, probably won't go into too much detail. I'll just give you some of the stuff that hopefully you won't find out from other non-owners videos. Alright, well we'll start at the front. So Voge basically are a premium arm of Lonsin, which is a Chinese manufacturer, been around since 1983, make BMWs for, no, they don't make BMWs, they make engines under contract for BMW. So you've got the 850 GS, that lump was made by Lonsin. So they've made engines for reputable premium manufacturers, and they're making their own motorcycles. And Voge is the brand that Lonsin have put out as their premium sort of top tier offering. So you can kind of see a little bit of this when you look at the components. We've got Nissin front braking system, Bosch ABS under the seat there, KYB front forks with 150mm of travel. Now they're not adjustable, but as I just found out coming down this dirt track, they're quite useful, sort of an all-round fork, quite comfortable, can soak up some of the bumps. Not proper off-road, but just for this sort of dirt track, it's coped absolutely fine. Let's move on to the heart of the beast. This is the Ally or LX 500 engine. Now it's very, very similar to Honda's CB500X motor. So you've got 471 cc's displacement. You've got 47 horsepower, so just under the A2 legal limit, and it's got the same bore and stroke as the Honda lump. So it looks like there's some similarities here between the Honda lump and Voge. Parallel twin 6-speed box, and I do find the 6 gear is incredibly useful when you're on longer trips, and I'll talk about touring as well on this bike. But longer trips, and also when you want to get a bit better fuel economy. I've managed to get about 60 miles per gallon, sometimes into the 70s on this, being very frugal with the throttle application there. Coming back, we've got kind of a basic exhaust system. It's got that satin effect with the black plastic, which I think they borrowed from the BMW GS standard silencer. Similarly, here we've got this scaffolding, this pannier mounting system. Now most modern bikes are doing the inbuilt racks and clips where the pannier can clip on to something which is hidden almost within the styling of the bike. This isn't that. I think this is also borrowed from BMW's GS in about 2012. It's a very similar design. So this rear mounting system, which holds a top box and 2 quite substantial aluminium side boxes, that mounts onto there, and that's really useful. As far as tyres, we've got the Metzeler Tourants. On the rear we've got 17 spoked rims, and then coming up to the front here we've got a 19 for a little bit more off-road capability, spoked again, and obviously the same tyre on the front. So the bike gives you a kind of a dual sport capability. You can go cruising on it, you can ride to work on it, you can go off-road on these little tracks and lanes, and you can also take the bike on fairly long distance. I will say though that there is another version of this bike called the 500DS that actually has cast alloy wheels, and they're 17s, so you'll have a 17 at the front. Now, oh, got a fly in my eye. You couldn't make that up, could you? Let's just have a look. Is it? You guys can tell me, have I still got it in there? No. Oh, I can't actually see. I don't think it's there. We'll keep that bit in, that was quite entertaining. You can get a bike very similar to this in styling with the cast wheel 17 at the front, and I think that'll handle a little bit nicer. One of my bugbears with this bike is actually the 19-inch front. I don't really need that, and I also don't like the spokes, because as we all know, spokes actually degrade over time. Okay, so talked a little bit about the bike. Let's talk about the performance of the Lump. So we're talking, yeah, just the ability to go 60 miles an hour comfortably. Probably can go 70 as well, any higher than 70 and you're getting some vibration, a little bit in the mirrors, a little bit through the pegs as well when you're going 70 plus. Responsiveness is nice. It has got a nice amount of torque, so overtaking is fine. You can pull off in some of the higher gears, second, third, fourth, at low speed, and it won't bog down or anything like that. It has got enough torque to deal with day-to-day situations. Let's talk about the comfort of the bike, and I'll just get on it so you can see what we're looking at. So let's do the old cowboy, get on the pegs. So we're sat on the bike here, just put my foot up so you can see. Very comfortable seat, I really like the seat. And then obviously my foot on the peg there. I've got a kind of a standard adventure bike, bend in the knee there. If I want to stand up on the bike, yeah, but overall, nice comfortable riding position, wide bars. The bike is 206 kg, so it's not the lightest thing in the world, but it's not super heavy. Manoeuvring the bike at low speed is also okay, don't mind doing that. Just get off the front. So yeah, I find it very comfortable. I have done a 500-mile day in the saddle on this bike, which was a bit tough for me. That's about my limit, but I can easily do, say, 100 miles, 150, 200 miles and not get any negative effects comfort-wise from this bike. When I got the bike, it was bone stock, and I made some modifications really just to try and get the bike set up for me. And the first thing I did was add an aftermarket screen. Now, because this is a Chinese bike, I had to get the parts from China, and this took about 5 or 6 weeks to arrive, actually, quite a long time. But I have got this kind of fancy, modern shaped looking screen. I've got, I think, 75 centimeters from top to bottom. It is an improvement on the standard screen for me. Now the standard screen is two-point adjustable, so you can undo this knob at the front and just slide the screen up and down. It can't be done when you're on the bike, so you have to stop the bike and then adjust this knob. But I did get horrible buffeting, and that really bothered me, especially trying to make videos when you're on the bike. Horrible buffeting. So I fitted a larger screen, and in the combination of the screen and the extender here, I've managed to reduce the buffeting and noise to an acceptable level, which is a nice improvement. I also fitted these handy adjustable levers, so they happen to say Voge on them. Again, ordered them from AliExpress, quite inexpensive. Also put heated grips onto the bike, which it didn't come with as standard. I thought that was something really important if I was going long distances, so I added those. And I got these actually really inexpensively. These are from China and they cost 10 quid. And that is not an exaggeration. They did actually cost £10.91 shipped. I've wired them into the battery. They needed a bit of fettling and soldering to get extender cables to allow you to wire directly into the battery. But it did work, and they are hot, so I can't really complain about that. Also, we should add that I fitted extenders, bar extenders on here. So when I was doing rides about 200 miles plus, I started to get that ache in the shoulder because they were a little bit extended. I think I must have short arms or something because it pulls my shoulders a little bit. And this happened on a couple of bikes. Happened on the Royal Enfield Meteor, happened when I rode the BSA Gold Star as well. Just pulled a little. So here I fitted these up and back, these bar risers, and that's actually solved it for me, so I could really recommend those. Okay, what other things have I done? I did fit an aftermarket exhaust system, which had a baffle in, and because I ordered the cheapest part going, the baffle stopped the flow of gas coming out the back, and then the sustained high rev, so thinking about going 80 miles an hour for a few hours on the European motorway, this built up heat and then discoloured the back of the exhaust, so I went back to stock. I would recommend leaving the stock exhaust on rather than trying to fiddle and change it. Oh, the last thing I attached was this little gadget here, which allows you to mount a camera onto the front, or a phone holder, so you can mount sat-nav. That little bar or gadget, that's really helped actually. I quite like that little addition. Okay, so let's talk about the price of the motorcycle. Now, if you're considering buying a Voge and not, say, a Triumph Tiger 900 Pro or a BMW 850 GS or even a Honda, you've got to consider, or you are probably considering, if you're watching this video, the price of the motorcycle. So these bikes, as standard, cost 5,300, something like that, for the DSX. For the DS, which comes with the cast wheel, remember the 17-inch front, that's a little bit cheaper, 200 quid cheaper. If you're going for the 650 DS, I think that's 6.5 grand, something like that. So you're getting 47 horsepower, quite quality premium components and that kind of thing for just over 5 grand. It's actually quite incredible when you come to think about it. Running the bike is quite inexpensive because you've got the smaller capacity engine, so you're looking at £47 to a tax here in the UK because it's under 600 cc's. Insurance is fairly reasonable for me as well. Fuel economy, as we mentioned, 60-70 mile per gallon, so that's really good. Servicing is actually quite straightforward because to get out the oil filter, you're just going to take off this plastic thing here, unscrew that, and then it takes, I think, 2.7 litres of oil. Quite an easy change. The air filter is actually a bit of a pain to get to because all this plastic has to come off to get to the tank, and then you can get that out and change the air filter. So if you were to drop this bike or damage it in any other way, that's where the real cost savings come in, I feel. Because, let's take this crash bar system here. You can go on a website called Chinese Motorcycle Parts Online, and if you want to replace this whole assembly, so that's this scaffolding all the way around here, which then bolts together to the other piece the other side via this little Allen key here, that's going to cost you £38 to replace that whole section. That is absolutely amazing when you think that a engine guard or crash guard from another manufacturer will cost you hundreds of pounds. That's absolutely amazing. Same story here with these cladding panels. I did complain about them a little bit earlier in the fact that they are annoying to take on and off when you want to access something like the fuel tank or the air filter or the gubbins underneath. But if you want to replace that, it's £30 or £50 at the most. And the nose cone section coming around here, that's going to be 50 quid. Now if you compare that to other manufacturers, I'll take Triumph for example, because I am a Triumph owner as well. The panels for the Triumph I'm trying to buy are £250 a side. So the order of it's actually an order of magnitude difference in the price of the parts. Because this bike is basically Chinese made and built. It's absolutely phenomenal for pricing. That for me is one of the great selling points about the bike. Low purchase price, good fuel economy. I think it looks great as well, and obviously to repair and restore the bike if you were to have an accident, it's very inexpensive. Also makes you feel like you can use the bike a little bit and you can not worry about it. It's kind of a useful tool, and you can enjoy it without sort of fretting about stuff. One of the other things which we should mention is the accessories that come with this bike as standard. So what we've got here is a 4-inch or so, maybe 3.5 inches, not a big TFT. In fact, the screen on my camera is probably not far off the same size as this TFT. But we have got a little TFT here, which I actually quite like. It's quite a little treat for me to have a TFT, having just had analog clocks before, or LCD clusters. You've got the, I'll just turn the bike on here so I can remind myself what's on it. You've got an initialization screen, which is strangely similar to BMW's again. But interesting, we've got outside temperature gauge, we've got fuel, temperature of the engine, we've got tyre pressure monitoring via Bluetooth on here, and you can also connect your phone so you can see calls and texts as they come in, which is really, really cool. Also, we've got trip meter, 2 different trips are possible, odometer, and we've got the average fuel consumption, which again is quite a nice feature to have. So I'm here recording 6.7 litres per 100 miles. I have got that down on a sustained cruise to below 5.9 or 6 on the nose. So good fuel economy. I just like the TFT. The TFT is just a nice thing to have, and obviously just below the TFT you've got the USB port there, so you can plug in accessories via the TFT. Good thing about having the USB port right in the middle, not on one side of the bars, if you want to connect up either sleeve to a heated vest or something, then you're kind of ambidextrous as to where the wire goes. That's a nice feature to have the USB port in the middle. The other thing which I really like about the bike is it does come with a centre stand as standard, so we can pop the bike up on the centre stand and do chain maintenance and that kind of thing. If you were to want to remove the rear wheel, then it's a lot easier with the centre stand, and that comes as that's stock. That I don't have to add that as an optional extra. So that's something nice that comes with the Voge. Okay, let's talk about the look of the bike. It looks like a typical dual sport bike. Not only the proportions there with the large front wheel, the sort of beaked nose, but you've also got this kind of angular and sharp appearance to it. I think it looks good. I like the little details like the pinstripes here, the fact you've got the red stitching which ties in with these things here. The exhaust, as I mentioned, is kind of borrowed a little bit from BMW's efforts. The rear tail light, of course, is LED. That looks really nice as well. And then coming round to the front, you've got a very Honda CB500X style headlights really, and these mud guards here are quite chunky and angular, so it all does look very good. The thing I don't really like probably is this what they call bash guards, but it's just a little piece of plastic. If you were to bash something seriously, that would just crumple and snap. Yeah, okay, it might be 50 or 60 quid to replace, it probably is, but it is very, very flimsy. So if that could be replaced with metal, that would really improve the bike for me. Okay, let's talk about some of the competitors for the Voge 500DSX. Probably the main one is Honda's own CB500X, similar dual sport entry-level motorcycle. You have an updated CB500X in 2022, which has Showa quality front suspension. It has now been upgraded to dual discs, the same as the Voge. Obviously the motor in the Voge very similar to the Honda, 47 horsepower, A2 compliant. You have a TFT in the Voge, whereas you don't in the Honda. The Honda probably has the more dealership support and the established branding and a higher resale value, that kind of thing. One thing where the Voge really excels is the optional accessories that the Honda will make you really bleed for. So the center stand, which I talked about earlier, comes as standard on the Voge, whereas it's 200-300 quid on Honda. The pannier system, if you can get it, it's about 500 quid. Now, most manufacturers, you're talking £1,000 for the full luggage set. That I'm including these parts here plus the boxes. Let's just show you the box which I use to carry my camera equipment in. So I'm just using the top box today, but quite a substantial thing. Other bikes which are similar, probably the Benelli 502X. That bike, kind of similar, but it's a bit bigger, a bit heavier. You're talking 220 kg, I think. I'll put it in the screen, the weight of that bike is. I also think the Voge is slightly more stylish than the Benelli, but that's kind of a preference thing really. The Benelli is a really good entry-level dual sport as well. A little bit bigger in the capacity, 500 cc's plus, or 502 in the name, isn't it? Whereas this is at 471, so Benelli a little bit more powerful, but then the Benelli is heavier again. You could also compare this bike to the 650DS. That's actually a single cylinder. It's a bigger overall bike. It's got more torque because it's a single and it's 650 cc's. But I find, I've ridden the 650 and I find that the smoothness of the twin outweighs that little bit more torque that you get with the 650. And when you open the 650, it'll shoot forwards. It's got a lot of torque relative to this, but it's the smoothness I don't like, and it's also a bigger bike. So I think they're quite similar price. In fact, the 500 or 525DSX is actually cheaper than the 650DS, but the engine character is better, especially for cruising, for motorway miles. It's more of an all-rounder, this bike, which I like about it. Okay, so finally, let's give you some ownership experience, really. The bike isn't perfect. Right guys, well I'm just going to go handheld to do the final segment of the video because it has actually started to rain here. So what we're going to do is talk about some of the downsides to the Voge. One is dealer location and availability. There's not that many Voge dealers and they're usually multi-brand franchises. So you're not going to find really specialists in the Voge motorcycle who know how to service it, have experience servicing it. The other thing is the spokes. I've got some rust on the spokes, and this does happen to all manufacturers, but it seems to be affecting the lugs that the wire spokes mount into. Just surface corrosion, it's not structural, but it does bug me a little bit, and I was told by the dealer that that is not going to be covered under warranty. So I'm kind of out in the cold there. This will make you laugh. The instruction manual or the owner's manual is in very broken English. So for example, the grinding in period, that's when you grind the engine, which doesn't, they're kind of like the opposite to what you actually want to do, isn't it? The grinding in period. But that's what they call running in. It's quite hard to find the information. Well, that's a lie. It's easy to find the information, but you'll just kind of smile to yourself because it's very poorly translated. The first thing I would do if I was bringing Voge in was I would correct the translation in the manual. Servicing the bike is actually a bit of a pain. You can access the oil filter down there quite easily, but when it comes to actually getting these covers off, so let me just turn the camera around. These plastic covers here are actually quite a lot of them. You know, this is going to come off, then this, then these side pieces, then this piece, this piece, this piece. All this stuff eventually has to come off to access the fuel tank, remove the tank, get to the air filter. So servicing is a little bit problematic. When you do eventually get to it, one of the differences with this bike to the CB500X is that you've got a little piece of bracket over the frame, which I can't, is it here? No, that's the pipe work. It's this or somewhere up there, which I can't quite get to with the camera. But the end result of that means that when you want to get this rocker head off to do the valve clearances checks, then it's a little bit difficult. You'll really have to bend your feeler gauge to get under there and do the checks. Not the end of the world, but it's something to consider that if you can't find a mechanic, let me just turn this around again. If you can't find a mechanic to do servicing who doesn't know the bike inside out, perhaps because it's not that well established a brand, they're going to have to fiddle quite a lot to get the bike apart to do some of the maintenance. The other thing I also noticed when this bike was apart is that the engine loom, some of the connectors were beginning to deteriorate. They were beginning to sort of kind of crust up a little bit, and I'll show some pictures of that in the video. But that's something to bear in mind. You know, this bike is only a year old, and I would probably get in there. In fact, the mechanic who I really trust, he did actually put contact grease all throughout my connections so that hopefully they won't deteriorate over time. This happens with all bikes, happens famously with Triumphs as well. But I'm just mentioning that is a little bit of an issue with the Voge. Alright guys, well thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed my owner's conversation, really, owner's review of the 500DSX. If you do want to know anything, then do jot it down in the comments. I will do my best to answer questions. And Voge have recently had a new importer in the UK, so MotoGP have taken over Voge. They've got 525AC, which I've also done a first ride review, the 650DS, DS Plus. This 525, oh this is the 500, but the 525DS is coming. And let me, just ask me and I'll tell you what I know about these bikes and the brand in general. But overall, really nice bike. I'm going to keep riding it and keep enjoying it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks a lot.